everyone, welcome to Gotham Discussions. I am Captain Logan, and joining me is the magnanimous Steve Baxi.
Hello, everybody.
And the very batty DanzNewz.
Hello.
Dan, thanks for being here. Finally got Dan on a regular program. I could not be more excited about this.
Yes, not every 2 years, as opposed to, before with the other Batman Arkham podcasts.
Well, if only the Arkham games came out every 6 months, we'd have been talking all the time.
Don't say that, because they're going to start doing that at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we talked about with Origins how we kind of hoped that would not happen. So, brand new discussion series for you on Gotham. We're going to be doing this every week, or at least the weeks in which a new one comes out, because the reruns, we've already talked about those.
Yeah.
And now discussion shows with 100% more moving pictures. So that's exciting.
So many more frames.
Look at Dan showing you what we can accomplish here on this show with the video
transformation. Okay.
We are. That's not a hat, Dan. That's a mask, man.
Here we go.
You're wearing it wrong. That's upside. It's upside down. Is it upside down on purpose?
No, is it upside down?
It's upside down.
Oh, no. Oh, dang it. Okay. I'm prepared now. Let's go.
Dan, Steve, thanks for being here. We're going to do this every week. I'm so excited about it. We're going to jump straight into it. Obviously, this is going to be a spoiler show. So if you've not watched Gotham yet, you should go watch the first episode first. There's lots of places you can do that. You can watch it on Fox's website. You can watch it on Hulu. Go do that, and then come back and watch this. We're going to be wrought with spoilers, and I want to start with you guys' general overview before we get to best moment, worst moment, all that stuff. I've already said my immediate piece of my first reaction with how we felt about show, so I'm going to start right with you guys. Dan, first of all, what did you think of this premise when you first heard what they were doing, and did it live up to your expectations?
I liked the idea of kind of doing Batman Year One, the TV show, essentially, and I really like this kind of that source material, Batman Year One, and the comic, the animated movie, which I thought was kind of like, I'm sure people have pointed out a million times over that Ben McKenzie had done the voice of Batman in that, did the voice of Batman in Year One, but I was kind of wary about it. A show that's about Gotham and not focusing on Batman. Wasn't quite sure if it was going to play out the way that would be that interesting to watch, but I think with the elements of new characters they brought in, as well as old characters and stuff like that, with James Gordon doing his thing in Gotham, I think it met my expectations, at least. Like, I went in with kind of lower expectations because I wasn't quite sure what to think of it, but all the previews and everything made it seem all right, and I think it was a relatively strong start for the series. Hopefully they can continue on with that. But
so you liked it? You're not terrified about having to watch it every week just so we can do this show?
I'm just glad. I'm glad it met my expectations, at least at kind of face level. Hopefully, I think there's elements of improvement that it can kind of capitalize on, but hopefully gets better. But no, I really liked it. I liked the first episode.
Well, Steve, you are one of the most knowledgeable and most critical of Batman people I know. Was there anything that immediately put you off on this one, or are you pretty excited and happy to keep going with it?
Well, there's one thing I know we're going to get to later, which is I'm still questioning, especially with this pilot, why does Bruce Wayne need to be Batman? And that's kind of been bugging me. At the same time, it sort of met my expectations in that I think it was going to be pretty mediocre to average. It's pretty mediocre to average.
Okay.
And the thing that's getting to me right now is just the performances. I don't want to be overly critical of this show, and I'm trying very hard not to be, and I'm not thinking about the comics whatsoever. It's just a matter of, I don't know if this show realizes what it wants to be yet.
A lot of people, early reviews I had read, had criticized it for that, for not really knowing what it wants to be yet. For me, I feel like it's almost a little premature to say that. Like I want to get 2 or 3 episodes down the road, because there is so much it's got to do right away just to A, get sold as a pilot, and B, get people excited to keep coming back. So it's got a little bit of pilotitis in that way, in that it's like we gotta excite people with, look, the Riddler's there, and look, the Penguin's there, and look, these people aren't gonna be there. Don't worry, it's a Batman show. By the way, did we mention it's a Batman show? DanzNewz. So the thing is, when you're making a show like this and you're throwing all that stuff in, it's really hard to juggle it all with the actual story that you're telling. When we get to the end and we've got, first of all, Falcone.
Yeah,
when
that was bothering me the entire time.
When you've got Falcone with his speech about what Gotham is and how he's trying to save it, which I thought was a fantastic speech, and then after that you have Bruce Wayne standing up to Alfred and already kind of trying to train himself, I feel like I'm getting a much better sense of where it might be going. I think what this show might be, Steve, is it's exploring the idea of Gotham creating Batman. And we see that happen instead of what people are worried about it being, which is Gordon is Batman before Batman.
I'm not sure if I completely agree with that.
Okay.
I don't want to turn this whole thing into a debate either, but like you said, one of the classic ideas of Batman is, did Gotham create Batman or did Batman create Gotham? And that's certainly in here. But I think we are getting a little bit of Gordon as Batman before Batman. Because I even have this in my notes. There's numerous points in this show where we get quotes that are very directly, is Gotham a John Locke style of people surrender certain rights so the system can protect their freedom? Or is it a Hobbesian kind of Leviathan's case where people left to their natural devices create nothing but chaos? And there's this idea that's battling it back and forth. At the same time, this show has a really weird pace. So it's almost at this point that Gordon made the promise that Bruce would have made the night his parents died. And if Gordon in the least bit is successful within the next 2 years, because this Bruce Wayne's supposed to be 12, then Bruce wouldn't have a reason to go off and train and be Batman.
But what I think is going to happen, and again, we'll see, and maybe I should save this for predictions, but I think what happens is Gordon fails. And then we still need Batman. So Gordon is like kind of a mentor figure for Bruce Wayne, and is part of how he becomes Batman. And he just isn't able to take it far enough. He can't take it far enough. And what is missing is the symbol.
Yeah,
I think one of the symbols that I picked up on right away, I think masks are incredibly important in this. I think it's really interesting that Bruce Wayne, who will eventually become a masked vigilante in this version, and I've never seen this before, I don't know if you have, Steve, his parents are murdered by a person wearing a mask. I think that is really interesting.
Yeah, it's happened a couple of times every now and then, but yeah, I gotta say, immediate credit, this is the best physical scene of Thomas and Martha getting shot and Bruce reacting. It's incredible.
High praise, because you've seen at least 715 of them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Bruce looking down the barrel of the gun and everything. It's pretty frightening. Even the scream, which I didn't like in the trailers, it completely works within text.
I still didn't like it. I didn't like it in the trailers either. Yeah. And it's just too. It sounds like a little girl's scream. Like. And I understand he's a younger child, but the thing that I always loved about year one specifically, I mean, that starts off on the image of Bruce sitting at his parents' dead, and it always seemed like more so a silent moment than, you know, a kid screaming at the top of his lungs. It was a little too overdramatic and a little corny for me, because it's just like, no!
Well,
to the camera as it pulls away.
At least he didn't say no or con.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Since we're there, let's go ahead and get into some plot stuff, and I want to start with the whole who exactly is it that kills Bruce Wayne thing, and do you guys think that they're going to turn that into a giant conspiracy? Because my first worry with the show was, okay, if that's the catalyst that gets the show going, that's your break-in status quo. Are we going to have to go several seasons where we have this really, really convoluted conspiracy of who killed Bruce Wayne's parents? And I think it still could turn into that, but I also could maybe see it potentially working depending on how they play it. Again, I think the fact that he's wearing a mask is a big deal. I think it's likely he's someone we've heard of. I think when we finally find out who it was, it's likely to be somebody we've heard of. And when Falcone says it was just a random thing at the end, you can tell, in my opinion, that he's lying. I don't think it was random at all. You see the way it plays in that scene; it's completely premeditated, right? Like it's very
deliberate. Though, like the pause before he shoots them is like, because everything played out the way it usually plays out in this origin scene where, you know, it all happens. Usually it's a bit more of a tussle. The gun fires almost accidentally. This time it was very like, okay, the pearls hit the ground, there's a brief pause, and then he fires. So it was pretty clear that that's what his intentions were, to make it look like a robbery. And
he's not desperate. He looks almost like maybe even I don't want to go as far as say mercenary type, but hired gun of some kind. Like, and then because there's that question that I think I don't remember if it's Gordon or if it's Bullock. I think maybe it was Bullock who's like, how would that guy have known where his parents were? And I mean, like where they were walking. So if this is a planned out thing, as it looks like it is, it seems like they're thinking about it. It seems like they're at least asking those questions that the audience is asking. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they point out a couple of clues about the price of how expensive the bullet is and the fact that Falcone went to all the trouble of creating a fake pearl necklace just to hide whoever actually did this. I think it almost might be fun to like have a running gag of we figuring out what the clues are. Because I feel like every couple of episodes they're going to drop something else, and it seems as if Gordon's whole character arc for the season is if he can find the Wayne killer, it's in effect also going to help change the city and the department, and that's going to be the crux of the show's focus, even if we have like week-to-week murder mysteries that he's solving.
Because what he wants to do, of course, is to prove that the police department doesn't need the mob, and that and that it can be something more, you know, altruistic and justice prone. Did you notice how incredibly observant Bruce Wayne is? He clearly already has a penchant for detective work because he gave a very detailed description of the guy who murdered his parents, like shiny shoes. I would not have noticed that.
I didn't notice it. I don't know if they specifically even highlighted that in the actual scene. Like, I never noticed shiny shoes, so I have to go back and watch it and see how shiny they really were as he was running away. But yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Dan, were you irritated, as a lot of people seem to have been, by all of the obvious, here's who this villain is gonna be? Did that bother you?
I thought it was incredibly, they shoehorned so many villains in there, like potential, like, you know, later, okay, here's the Riddler, here's Poison Ivy, here's Catwoman. Like, it seemed overloaded and a little too convenient that all of these people are somehow related to Bruce's, or were involved with Bruce's family's murder. Like, it just seemed incredibly too convenient to me and kind of off-putting. Like, the second is like, who are you, Ivy? And I was like, is that supposed to be Poison Ivy? Oh gosh, it's supposed to be Poison Ivy. There she is watering her plants. It's just like, it's a little too much for me. Like you said before, it's like, hey, Batman show. Like, it was too much of that. But
Steve, did you feel the same way?
Yeah, exactly the same way. I think the most obnoxious and probably the most annoying one, it might even be my worst moment, but I've got another one also. I hated the way they introduced the Riddler. I thought it was terrible.
Oh, really? I enjoyed that. But I'm a big Riddler fan, and I was just excited to see it. And I think the casting is fantastic.
Yeah, I can meet you there. The casting is great, and I really love the Riddler. But my problem with it is that you introduce him as this overtly over-the-top, already making riddles, already establishing the fact that he's going to become Riddler later on. He doesn't have a character. His character is that he's over the top, and it's different from Fish
Not
Mooney.
yet! You saw him for 10.5 seconds!
And he gave you like 3 riddles in 10.5 seconds. Literally.
No, I know. Here's the thing, Steve. I'm arguing with you now because I watched it again and I liked it the second time. The first time I had the exact same thing you did. I think because I just rewatched it too. I think before I was preparing for, I think because I was prepared for it and I knew it was coming when I saw it again, I was actually paying more attention to the riddles, and I was like, no, those are actually kind of cool.
I just rewatched it before we started talking, and for some reason, it was annoying that the fact that he just had 3 or 4 riddles outlined like that, and the first thing Bullock mentions about him is that this guy is always talking about riddles. Couldn't we get to perhaps, like, he has a place in the police precinct, and they've worked with him before, and this is the guy, and set us up to meet him and give him a character before he just shoehorned all of his dialogue as riddles?
Yeah, but I think you got a sense of, like, what he does for the department, right? Like, he's got to be, like, a forensic guy or something.
Yeah, but, like, it's too much, I think. Like, it's very easy to walk into an office and Bullock to say, like, don't talk to this guy, he's really annoying because all he does is ask riddles, and then you meet him. It's just too forced. It's too quick. I don't believe for a second that this guy is very interesting, or even that he's going to matter, even though I know eventually he will.
But it's an introduction. Like let's wait and see what it does. I think that's indicative, Steve, of a much larger issue, which is simply. If this is going to be your cast and you're going to have this many characters, we really don't have to introduce every single one of them in the pilot. And I think that they did that, again, as part of selling it to the network. So network executives that didn't know much about Batman would go, oh yeah, we've heard of the Riddler. That's that guy everybody wanted for Dark Knight Rises before we found out Bane was in it. And stuff like that. And I think that part of the problem is that a lot of people called them. I'm looking at comments and people complaining about it. A lot of people are saying, why did you have to have so many cameos? They're not cameos, I don't think. These are all going to be major characters that are just set up already. I think that really shows you how irritating that is for people. I think a lot of folks are not even realizing that that's establishing the main cast.
Yeah, I feel like with the whole Riddler thing, they could have gone a bit more of an interesting direction, as opposed to being the guy in the precinct known for throwing out riddles every 5 seconds. It would have been interesting if they played it a bit kind of closer and did something kind of like a Dexter almost like thing. Like down the line, he becomes a character that is working within the precinct, but is also planning these elaborate crimes. Because the second it happens and there's these elaborate riddles, it's like, hey, what about that guy right there who tells the riddles all the time in the precinct? Let's look into him a little bit, or at least have him on the case. I mean, it could still be that kind of Dexter thing where they bring him in on the case, like, you're good at riddles. Hey, wait. So yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I would say that it's putting the shadow of Batman before what the show is supposed to be about. Like, if we're supposed to be caring about Jim Gordon and Bullock and doing a procedural crime drama, then shouldn't we be focusing on Jim Gordon and doing Bullock and their character relationships, instead of constantly saying that, sure, we're going to have all these characters in our main cast, but they're not going to be really important until 30 years down the line. And all we're seeing is, the shadows of their future. And I don't think we need that. I think we need to get to know them now, here, and see what kind of people they are. So eventually, whether or not they become villains, it doesn't matter, because we got interesting interpretations right now. Yeah. I know what you're saying about the fact that it's a pilot, but that doesn't change the fact that first episode, first impression, it is a bit of a problem.
Sure, absolutely. But I want to suggest, too, that I don't think they're looking at it as far in the future as you are. I think that the folks making the show are looking at it more like these characters become their costume selves 7 or 8 years down the road as opposed to 30. Mostly just because of where they have them, where they're playing them now. Because a lot of people are complaining about that. Oh, a lot of these villains just seem like they're already too close to themselves. They already have their motifs. But I would submit that if they're going to become costume characters just a few years from now, that's maybe okay. Steve, would you agree that I am familiar with this version of early Penguin? I've seen this something very similar to this with him before. The whole he's really awkward and insecure and looks very very strange and is an outcast and doesn't like being called the Penguin. That's not new. That's straight off the page for certain continuities. And so I'm sure some people are like, oh, did we have to call him Penguin this early? No, I'm glad they went there with him. There's certain versions that I think that or certain characters I think that makes a lot of sense for, and other characters aren't evil or menacing or villains yet, but have those motifs, and I think that could be okay. I think it just depends on who we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll meet you on Penguin, because Penguin I think they do perfectly. I love their Penguin.
I like him a lot.
Just don't like all the other characters.
Okay.
Simply because we're getting to know Penguin, and he's got motivations, and he's got problems, and they're doing things with him. Sure, they say they insult him as Penguin, but you get to see this guy enjoying torturing a person in the back alley and kissing up to a mobster. That's a character before a motif. And everyone else is a motif and then a character.
Oh, I agree with you.
I have the same problem with Renee Montoya when we get down to her later.
But the thing I love about the Penguin is that I think that a character who is really super insecure and not sure of himself, who is also that ambitious, is immediately interesting and terrifying. I love that. And at the end, he kills a man for a sandwich, and that's fantastic.
Well, what about Catwoman? I thought she was immediately Catwoman pretty much already, and she's just a little girl. But I thought that played out really well. And did she have any dialogue this episode?
She does nothing. No. She follows Bruce Wayne around, and we don't know why.
Well, I mean, she saw his parents murdered. But I thought Catwoman worked out well as a character so far, and she hasn't said a thing. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I like her look. I think it's cool. I think that Selena Kyle seeing Bruce Wayne's parents murdered, Bruce Wayne getting murdered. That would be a different show. Bruce Wayne's parents getting murdered is immediately a fascinating place to go, and I don't think it's just change for the sake of change. Were you guys like me when I first saw it? And I was like, wait, what? What? The more I thought about it, I was like, okay. Catwoman has always been played as a character who's like on the fence. She's a heroic character and also a villainous character all at the same time. She straddles the line. Her being whoever she is before this, and I'm sure we'll get some background and dimension for her, seeing and being influenced by the very thing that turns Bruce Wayne into Batman is a really cool idea, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a really great way to take her, and I didn't mind the fact that she didn't have any dialogue. We got to see her do a lot, and clearly she's not a very good thief yet, but she's going to be living on the streets, and she's going to improve. And even if we don't see her further down the line, there's a chance that she could very naturally end up in the precinct multiple times anyway, and she could get to know Gordon over time, and that can be a fascinating relationship to have.
We need to jump to best moment, worst moment here in a second, so let's make sure that we hit a couple other big things that people are really going to want us to talk about, one of which is the stand-up comic, who is clearly, obviously, is he maybe going to become the Joker kind of character. This is what I think they're going to do with it. Again, I should say this for predictions, but I'm going to mention this now. I think that what they might do, or this is what I'm hoping they'll do, is give us a whole bunch of different characters that have Joker backstories we've seen before, and you never know which one of them is actually the Joker. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I had read an interview with the producer who pretty much said that exact thing.
Good.
It could pretty much be like there's going to be so many characters that could be the Joker, and down the line they would reveal which one would be the Joker. But he was saying that it was something that he wasn't taking lightly, and something that he wanted to definitely have the right amount of gravitas behind it.
I guess I'm just projecting my Batman fandom when I say this, because, I mean, if it's awesome and I like it, fine, whatever, this is a reimagining, but I kind of hope they never reveal it. I kind of hope they just give us all that, keep it ambiguous. You get to the end of the series, you never have the Joker, and you have no idea, or the Joker in the last, episode or whatever pops in, and you still can't tell through the makeup which one of those guys it is, and that would be really cool.
Yeah, it's just pretty interesting.
But I guess I should just ask you guys to weigh in on that scene.
Oh, the Fish Mooney scenes, particularly.
Yeah,
I really liked her quick turn of anger. The second she was I was kind of lulled into a false sense of everything's gonna be okay. It's getting towards the end of the episode. I mean, nothing back yet. Oh wait, because then she was like, he betrayed me. I really liked the dynamic between particularly Gordon and Bullock there. That Bullock would stand up for Gordon almost because it's just like one of those. Just that idea of whatever my other partner is going to think if I didn't stand up for this partner, even if he doesn't like him. But I didn't think, I was going in thinking I wasn't going to like Fish Mooney at all. From the previews, I didn't really think it was that great. I think Jada Pinkett did a really good job. She was scary when she needed to be, she was tough when she needed to be, and she was sly when she needed to be. So I felt like her character really worked out well, and I actually liked her in the Penguin a little bit too. I mean, there was a very tiny little bit of backstory there that they kind of went back a little while. I like the idea that she kind of shaped the Penguin a little bit into the way he is as well.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Weirdly, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on for the Penguin and turning him into something closer to what we know just in this first episode. Because, and Steve, this is probably, I'm thinking, and I'm with you, where you're maybe picking up some Gordon seems like Batman before Batman stuff of Gordon doesn't kill the Penguin, and then can he be considered partially responsible for some of the horrible things he does later by not killing him, which is a huge Batman motif.
Yeah.
I mean, they're exercising quite a bit of those. To also address the Fish Mooney thing, there's that great thing that we mentioned before about did Batman create Gotham or Gotham create Batman? It's interesting to see because there's always this paradigm in Batman of this is when the mobsters ruled, this is when the supervillain came out, and Batman's right in between. But when you look at the way Fish Mooney's played, and she's so over the top, and she's really fun, she's kind of bright, and that starts as a mobster thing, and to think that the freak idea shows up within the mobsters' ranks before Batman shows up, but after the murder, and maybe there's a correlation there of The freaks are just as inherent to Gotham as the mobsters are, and the whole mob war that they're talking about is just a precursor to the bigger war when Batman shows up. And that's really fascinating to sit there and think about, because Fish Mooney's obviously going to be a really important character down the line, and they're doing the whole Batman Eternal thing of the gang war, and Falcone being in charge, and Penguin vying for power and all that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work in Eternal, but it has the potential to work very well here.
Yeah, I'm with you about all that, and I also think that it's very important what Bruce Wayne doesn't see, because he's going to be isolated and away from all this. Presumably, for the most part, he's going to have a relationship with Gordon, but don't you think, Steve, that there could be a complex when he becomes Batman where he thinks that he has created stuff that was actually there all along, and he just couldn't have possibly known that?
Yeah, that's part of why I love it, because Batman blames himself for quite a bit. And to add this dimension of now that Batman blames himself irrationally because there were motives and lines and things leading up to this point. I think if we get the origin of the Joker, and Batman always considers that one of his biggest failures before Jason Todd, if we get the origin of the Joker in this show and it's something Gordon did, and then Bruce still ends up blaming himself because the relationship doesn't change, that could be endlessly fascinating, because Batman's own belief about the Joker would be a joke in and of itself.
One more thing we should talk about before we go on to categories is briefly the Gordon and Bullock relationship, because that's clearly going to be the crux of the show, as far as I can tell. And I'm immediately kind of interested in the difference in their contrasting worldviews. But I think that they did a really good job, and I liked him a lot better the second time I watched it, of making Bullock not an incredibly unsympathetic character because he goes along with the mob rule thing. I really like it at the end when he says, "I don't know if I'll have the stomach to kill you." He seems like he doesn't have the same values as Gordon exactly, but he seems like he wishes he could have something closer to that, and he just can't because he wants to live.
Yeah. He is the way he is because the way things are. That's pretty much the characterization of it. But
it's a really cool inverse of the Earth One way of doing things too, because Gordon and Bullock, usually the relationship is Bullock looks up to Gordon because Gordon cleaned up the city, and in Earth One it's that Gordon's tired of everything and Bullock shows up and helps Gordon out of his slump while simultaneously getting into his own. And this is the exact opposite of Gordon shows up, Bullock's in his slump, and it seems like Gordon's going to bring him out of it, but as you mentioned, Cap, it might be the case that Gordon slips into his own.
Dan, you haven't said a whole bunch yet. Anything general overview-wise that we haven't touched on yet that you really wanted to bring up?
I think Steve touched a little bit about the acting. I felt like I think the weakest person here for me was Ben McKenzie, probably. I just feel like when I'm watching him, he's saying these lines. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on behind it. It was only really when he got angry that I was like, okay, there's a little bit of something, but I just wasn't really feeling like there was a whole lot of weight behind anything he was saying for me. It was just really strange, because I wanted to really like him, and I thought he was good, but it wasn't really until towards the end when he kind of, the character-wise, decided to kind of start playing this role where he pretended to kill the Penguin and stuff like that. That's when I started kind of to click with it a little bit, but I just felt like there wasn't much connection for me for some reason behind anything he was doing. It was just like, I can't really explain it. I just wasn't really feeling it for his performance a little bit. I don't know, it might change as time goes on, but I think towards the end I was kind of getting a bit more comfortable with it, but it just seemed too much was happening too quickly throughout the show, where it was just like bam, bam, bam. Couldn't really connect with a whole lot. I don't know. That was just my thing.
I can see where you're coming from with that, mostly because this show has a really brilliant atmosphere and set. So Ben McKenzie's not the guy with the strongest screen presence.
Exactly, yeah.
So when you're showing up with all these fantastic sets and scores and stuff, Ben
and
McKenzie gets
much larger characters, much larger characters as well.
And I gotta say, Bullock outacts Gordon in every scene, so that might be part of it. So when finally we isolate those two characters at the end of the pier, and there's nothing but the water, Gordon and Bullock, he can finally get a chance to shine because his screen presence isn't being contrasted by all the cityscapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and hopefully it'll be kind of, and I don't think that this is as severe of a thing, because I guess I like Ben McKenzie a little bit more than you did, Dan. But I do wonder if it might be kind of like a Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum thing of the more they're in scenes together, the more he'll rise to the occasion, because he's with a much more experienced and I don't know if I want to say more talented, I don't know yet, but just more experienced actor probably. In a lot of scenes together. But I think he also has a really tough role to play because he's got to kind of act that naivety early on, and I think maybe some of his lack of screen presence is just kind of him trying to play that naivety. On the other hand, there is dialogue that tries to tell us that he has more of an edge than maybe we're seeing, right? Like when he has that line where he's talking, or that scene where he's talking to Barbara, and she says, "Well, you can swim," as if he's kind of idealistic, but he knows how to deal with tough situations. Yeah, how much of that have we really seen in the performance yet? I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think I misspoke a little bit. I mean, I liked his performance. It's just I wasn't clicking with it. I just really wasn't connecting with it so much early on. But as time went on, I think I accepted it a little bit more. So.
I felt that way about the whole show the first time I watched it, where it wasn't until Falcone's speech that I was really with it. I kept asking myself, would I come back for this show if it weren't Batman characters? This is like the premise of what I'm looking at if I'd never seen this stuff before. I mean, kind of hard to take that out of it, I suppose, but just are these people coming alive enough? And the second time around, I kind of felt it a bit more. The first time I kept thinking that characters didn't seem to really have their own voices. This time, I loved Cobblepot's voice. Like some of the way he says things, partially because we have the intellectual penguin again. And I'm pretty excited about that. He has some really cool turns of phrase and ways that he puts words together and stuff. So now there's more of that there than I was giving it credit for in the first place.
Yeah. What do we think of Alfred's voice?
Alfred?
He's I mean, I don't know about him yet. In every iteration I've ever seen, he's always been very posh British. This he's very he says mate a lot, to Gordon particularly. It's just he seems like a guy hanging down at the pub more so than a guy who's a refined butler.
He's a little hard.
So far
it's hard to place it because he's got lines that are really sarcastic towards Gordon. He yells at Bruce, and Bruce has to yell at him back to get him to be quiet. And it's a little bit of the Earth One relationship, but I don't like the Earth One relationship.
And I do, so there. But yes, yeah. I totally see where you're saying that. But I mean, we just got to see where it goes, because I think it's likely to play, and I feel like I saw hints of it. It's likely to play where he has a lot of empathy for Bruce, but he doesn't like to show it because he's trying to toughen him up and help him get through this. I mean, when he says, whatever, he doesn't say buck up, but whatever it is that he says when they're walking away from the funeral, I'm like, yeah, I think he's feeling one thing and doing another thing. And all we need is an episode that really centers on him, and I think that we can flesh that out. And we just need to get in his head. I think if he looks too hard to us now, I think when people criticize about that, and the producers and writers look at us criticizing that, they're going to smile and say, "Yeah, that's what we want you to think so far. That's what we want."
I want them to officially just reveal that this is the British Army kind of Alfred coming back with PTSD or something, because, I mean, you don't have to do that, but just give him something that warrants him being harder on Bruce than he really needs to be, I think. Because I can see the whole tough love angle you're putting on, and yeah, it's a great idea. It's just, he doesn't get a whole lot of lines, and every time he talks, it feels like him and Alfred are more antagonistic than they are surrogate father-son.
Again, so far we're only getting a window into it, and it's from Gordon's perspective. So if that's true, then I do feel like that's what we're supposed to be thinking so far. I mean, when we're going to have to actually go into that mansion and spend a 15-minute scene with them before we get.
And I like the idea of a cynical Alfred and an angry Alfred. That could be potentially very interesting, especially if he's lived in Gotham as long as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and jump on now to Best Moment, Worst Moment, and we shall begin with Steve Baxi. Steve, best moment of the episode. What was your favorite part?
Okay, I don't think there was much of a contest for me, honestly. My favorite moment was the final speech between Falcone and Gordon. because I feel like that's when the episode finally took all of its ideas and wrapped them into one big bow, and I think it actually really worked. Like I mentioned before about the whole, are you John Locke, or are you Thomas Hobbes, are you Leviathan, or are you Citizens and stuff like that, and all of it's right there with everything Falcone's saying about what's going to happen if you get rid of the police department, and then Penguin saying that there's going to be chaos and things like that. Like, Falcone, above everyone else, seems to be almost the anti-Batman because he loves the city. And he loves the city because it lets him get away with crime. And that's a really fascinating idea to talk about.
But he also knows that it's falling apart and doesn't see how he is part of that problem. I love that.
It's fantastic.
I mean, we get all of 3-4 minutes with him, and he immediately came alive for me. I thought he was wonderful. I wish people would pronounce his name right, but I thought he was wonderful.
Yes. I can't wait for Marone to pop up. Or Razal. Goo.
Anyway. Dan, what was your favorite moment of the episode?
It's gonna sound like a broken record. The same thing. It was the same thing. I really connected with the show once Falcone popped up. Once the ideas started kind of coming alive a bit more. Exactly. I can't really say much more than what you guys already said, because I really like that idea that he wants to fix the city, but he's the reason the city's going to hell in the first place. Dan, it was an interesting idea.
Dan, you're not going to add any more philosophy background to what Steve said?
Well, I'd have to pull up all of my one semester of community college here. Who is I took a class on Microsoft Word. I think I can pull up a thesaurus or something like. No, I really that's when things finally started to click for me. But probably outside of that, if I had to pick a best moment, it would definitely be Penguin and Gordon at the end of the pier, when he told him not to come back to the city, and that's the moment where I saw Gordon having to play a role to fit in and kind of to try to take that moment to, because I thought, I was like, he's going to tell him no and then he's going to kill, or not kill him, but somehow it's going to get out of it. He took the kind of role of the pretender almost to stick in, the police department and everything, and I thought that was interesting.
That is my favorite moment. My second is you guys's, and the Falcone moment is the place where, as I said, it really started to get me. But I think that the way they play it on the pier is really strong, and I feel like that's likely to be indicative of what the overall tone of this show is supposed to be. And then third is Penguin killing a guy for a sandwich. Let's go on to worst moment. Excuse me. Let's go on to worst moment. Steve?
Okay, worst moment would undisputedly be the Renee Barbara scene. I thought that was terrible. That was the worst acting in the entire episode. Barbara Keene, whoever plays her, I don't think she's very good. She's supposed to be Gordon's wife or fiance, and she plays it so flirty. There's no chemistry between two. It's as if they just started dating, not as if they've been together and they've seen a bunch of tough situations together. And when Renee shows up and we get like these possible hints and stuff that they had a relationship, we're giving her a characteristic before we're giving her a character. She's known because she's a lesbian before we know her as Renee Montoya. And that bothers me because it's the same thing they've done with all the other villain characters. And everyone, the way they just deliver the dialogue in that scene where she's like, "That's why I'm here." Oh. It's so bland, and you could see the pauses between lines. I don't know, that scene just doesn't play for me at all.
Dan, yours was the same, yes?
Yeah, because I was watching it, and I was watching this with my girlfriend, and she picked up the lesbian undertones before I even did, because I'm stupid. And we were watching the scene, and I was just like, wait, what? Like, it was so out of nowhere, and I have no idea, like, what the purpose was for that outside of, like, character issues down the line where maybe Gordon's working closer with the MCU and that becomes an issue down the line that they had a previous relationship and all that. But no, I completely agree. I didn't feel like that connection was there between Gordon and Barbara, because just on the plain level that I didn't feel like it's just like, I mean, because she becomes the woman behind the man essentially as time goes on, and I just don't feel like she is that character. Like she does kind of play that role in the episode, but the fact that she doubts him, I mean, I guess it's indicative that it's earlier on in the relationship, but she doubts that he maybe was on the take or was behind covering up the Wayne murder. I feel like there wasn't. I don't know. It just didn't like her so much. She was probably the weakest link out of everything for me.
Yeah, well, I feel that way about Barbara Keene. I'm hoping that as time goes on, maybe with better material, because I think part of it was the writing, I think, but maybe I don't know, maybe more of it was the acting. But I'm with you. I wasn't loving her. With regards to why they felt the need to that early go the big thing you need to know about Renee Montoya is that she's a lesbian. I think, Steve, you might be onto something, that it might be taking with a lot of the characters, not all of them, but with 70% of them. There's a lot of, let's take the big thing people know about them and make that the thing we embed into this episode, as you said, instead of just making them people and letting those things come out naturally. With Renee Montoya, that's a recent thing. She dated Batwoman, if you don't know that, Dan, and so the whole thing is, well, what really is the big resounding thing people know about Renee Montoya? That she's a good cop, and that she has that, and some of that in selling the pilot might also just be kind of a progressive thing, that, like, you know, we're trying to show Fox that we're doing a serious and progressive show by dealing with things like that. Kind of forced.
Yeah, definitely forced.
My worst moment should have been that, I suppose. I agree with you. I didn't like that either. I wrote down the Ivy scene simply because that was the biggest irritant for me. Of, look, there's a character that we, and part of it too is because her name is already Ivy, and then plants. Like, why can't she leave? Like, why is she the one character in the show that doesn't have her comic book name? Why is she Ivy Pepper? Where did that come? What is that? That is weirdly kind of CW. It's sort of like we can't call we've got to call the chicken Arrow Laurel. We can't call her Dinah. We have to call her Laurel. Why? Because it's different. That's why it's Laurel now. All right. So this struck me as that way. We have to have that token character that we changed their name. Not that was a name change. That was a middle name thing. But still, it's in that category. I think it's. I don't know. I thought that was a little bit weird. And also, and because I guess if I'm complaining about that, it's less as a moment and more as just a thing the show decided to do. But more of it is, Gotham, when they do so much of that, seems much smaller than it should, because every single important character is somebody I've heard of, except for Fish Mooney. Right? Like, it's like oh, and the person who gets framed for the Wayne murders is Pamela Isley or Ivy Peppers. Well, I guess they also did it with Falcone, because that's not his name. Ivy Pepper's father. Oh yes, of course. Okay, all right. That was weird for me. Whatever. So I guess we'll skip the guest star category this time, because everybody's pretty much going to be regulars that we've seen so far, and we've talked about folks. What was, Steve, your favorite line?
I had two. One of them's more jokey. The other one's actually a serious line. The jokey would be that pretty fun joke the not Joker told him at the bar. I want to die how my father died, peacefully in his sleep, not like his screaming passengers.
Yeah.
And then the other more serious one would be Falcone's great line of, you can't have organized crime without law and order, and I love this city, and I see it going to hell, but I won't let it fall without a fight.
Dan, you didn't have a favorite line?
I didn't write down a favorite line, but what was the name of that bad guy, the big guy with the mask who chose the cleaver?
Okay, so that was crazy. That was so over the top. I was like,
probably
what?
Calling him out. It's like, hey, Kevin, get out here, or whatever. That's probably my favorite line. Or whatever it was. He had the most normal name. I can't remember what it was. I thought it was funny, just like, hey, get out here, and it's just like a big guy with a mask and a meat apron, and I'm just like, okay, so random.
I I did not have a favorite serious line. I think all the really good ones were kind of in the trailers, but I'm gonna go with "Shiny Shoes, Mother of God." I burst out laughing when he said that. And this is not a brilliant script. This is not a terrible script, but there are lines. There are a couple of lines here or there where I go, nobody can deliver that line naturally. "Shiny shoes, Mother of God."
You know, I almost wish they had played it a bit more for laughs when Gordon asks the wife, is this the only place you have shoes? And she could have just been like, yeah, let me go into my other shoe closet I have over in the corner in this danky apartment. Like,
she did have this expression on her face like, yeah. This is a very strange scenario I'm in the middle of. Why are you looking through my dead husband's shoes? Let's go on now to shiny shoes, mother. Let's go on to predictions and hopes. Steve, give me one big prediction or hope, something you think's going to happen, or something you're really hoping to see happen down the road.
Okay, something I'm really hoping for down the road is that we answer who killed the Wayne murders as a very large conspiracy by the end of the season. Because I've started already like a category on my notes of here of all the evidence lining up to the Wayne murders, and I want to see if maybe halfway through the show we can predict it or not. But if we can make this a very broad, sweeping conspiracy all the way from the bottom of Gotham all the way to the top, it could be very indicative of why Batman does what he does, that whole idea of he's the linkage institution between illegitimate violence and violence. It not only could it play to Batman ideas, but it would be a really unique way to do it. It'd be the Grant Morrison way of doing it, of making everything kind of big and conspiracy-like he does in Batman R.I.P. I think there's just a whole bunch of untapped potential there, that the killing isn't random. This is Thomas and Martha Wayne, and that's a statement about the city.
Yeah. Speaking of, when you were talking about philosophy stuff earlier and you kept saying Leviathan, and stop saying, you keep saying Leviathan, and all I can do is think of Morrison. Dan, what is a prediction or a hope that you have, sir?
A prediction. I kind of like what I said about earlier about the Riddler. I hope they go down the road where they kind of have him in a villainous role as well as, kind of hiding in the department. That's my big. Well, I guess that's also kind of a hope. I predict that's going to happen, and I hope. Oh, I had a good one a second ago. Hold on. Oh man. It was good, let me tell you. I totally had one. How about you go and I'll try to remember.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, prediction I have is that before the season is out, and I'm thinking earlier rather than later, they will already go Bruce Wayne finds the Batcave or has the Bat thing happen. I think that happens this season.
Gotcha. I'm writing mine down so I don't forget.
I would be kind of surprised if we stayed that off too long. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think you're right. Especially given that Bruce is looking for kind of a direction and Gordon's going to be doing that. Bruce is trying to conquer his fear. The Batcave would be the natural place to do it. And I really like this kid as Bruce Wayne. I think he's doing a great job. So if we see him in the Batcave, if we get kind of like that Nolan scene of getting up through the bats and stuff, that would be fantastic.
What was your other one, Dan?
My other one was I hope they kind of tap into the more goofier villains. Captain Logan and I share one of our favorite bad guys is Clock King. So if they had something like a Clock King episode or just the more outrageous Batman.
Although I'm actually gonna say don't do Clock King in this because we already have the really great scary gritty Clock King and Arrow, and I don't think you can really improve on that in this.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, he's wonderful. Yeah, no, I love him. He's maybe my second favorite right now. I really, really like him.
So you really have Clock King and Arrow?
Oh yeah, and he's coming back this season. Yeah, he's great. Dan? I don't know if I told you about this. I'm not taking credit for this, but I did a petition during first season to get Clock King and Arrow, because I don't know if you know this, but Clock King is originally a Green Arrow villain before he's a Batman villain. And I said, you guys have got to do Clock King, and I got a bunch of people to sign a petition, and I don't think they saw it, but second season we got Clock King, and I was like, yay, we need to, I should have thrown a party and made a Clock King cake. I really should have.
There you go, you should have.
I didn't do that,
that's awesome.
Anyway. But no, I'm with you. I think, Steve, let's throw back and forth a couple that we think would be great for this that are kind of smaller, second string, minor guys. Calendar Man, I think, would be really good for this world.
Calendar Man would be, I think, absolutely perfect with the way they're reinterpreting it. It'd be perfect for a procedural crime drama. Jokingly, I wanted Condiment King, but I know that wouldn't work at all. I think it'd be really cool if we got the Wrath in this show.
I don't even know who that is, dude.
Oh, okay.
The Wrath.
Well, essentially, the Wrath's backstory is that in self-defense, Gordon killed both of his parents, and he became the Wrath to take revenge.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you're saying bring in the villain that is a Gordon villain before he's a Batman villain.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. And I know in some previous continuities, the Wrath's father was the first Wrath, and if we have Gordon kill him in the line of duty, and then we see his son, and it's paralleling with Bruce Wayne, those two kids get some screen time together. Maybe even get Tommy Elliott in the show.
Yeah, I was thinking
thinking that the second you said that. I was like, oh yeah, that would be pretty good, actually.
I would like to see some more subtle ones, and I really wish they were maybe doing that with a couple people in this, but I don't know. With the Riddler, I want to be doing questions, whatever. But like I think it would be cool to get a couple that maybe people watching that aren't Batman fans wouldn't know yet. Like do Anarchy before Anarchy, or do or have like one of the Clayfaces before he's Clayface, and just have him as an actor, and just have him in an episode. Something like that. I think would be really cool.
I would also really love if they did Penguin style Rupert Thorne.
Yeah.
Well, and fantastic.
Obviously, this is a great place to mine all the great mob bosses.
Yes.
You could do pretty much everybody. You could do Daggett and call him Roland Daggett this time, and actually have his name be Roland.
Yeah.
One of the things we didn't talk about that I want to throw out real briefly because we're out of time. But one thing that I did really appreciate is because we touched only briefly on the style of this show and the visual style, and I love that it's kind of out of time. We do have cell phones and stuff, but I like that it's a very like amalgam of a lot of different time periods, and that's what I want for a Batman universe. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I have in my notes, it's kind of animated series in that vein, where Bullock's clothing are really kind of 1980s, Gordon's more of like early 2000s, but the whole city has this scape of just really seedy 70s, 80s kind of New York. And I think that looks really cool. We don't even see that much technology. I mean, we got the cell phones, we got the cars, but more or less, it's everyone just doing hands-on things in a really grimy-looking place.
It's gonna be interesting to see if they do very much internet, because I'm not real sure how you get around it, but I don't know. It could get interesting. I guess it's easier to do this with I just thought of this with a Batman universe where we don't have Batman doing anything with gadgets. This is kind of easier to avoid technology because you don't have to worry about gadgets. Let's go ahead now and talk about comic references. Most of it is just folks that show up. But there's I think a couple of things here and there. I imagine a lot of people probably wouldn't know that Sarah Essen is a comic book character, and I'm really glad she's in this. I think that's pretty exciting. She's the police captain, and he's barely named, and that's one of the only even remotely subtle things the show did. I didn't know it was Sarah Essen until I looked it up. That's super cool, I think. Fourth and Grundy, really?
Yeah, I was that's the one I caught. I was just like, what? Grundy? That's a street?
We got Grundy in Arrow. Why do we have to reference him here? Why can't we do something more kind of fun and subtle? Like, whatever. I don't want to complain about it. But I just thought that was kind of, I was like, really? Grundy? Okay, all right. Well, Grundy is a street in Gotham, guys.
Also what I have is Fish Mooney's created for the show, but Carmine Falcone does have a lieutenant named the Fish in early Batman comics. Also, we have that hostage scene at the very beginning of the show is extremely similar to the hostage scene of Year One, where it's Gordon preventing a bunch of cops from going around and shooting people and talking to a criminal and knocking him out rather than doing the gunfight. And the last thing I have that isn't very obvious is the mayor that we see crying is the same mayor that cries for the Wayne murders in the comics, named Aubrey James.
Yeah, and he's going to be recurring.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, because I saw a promo or something where he's, or like a picture or something where he's actually talking directly to Bullock, so he's going to be in the show. And that's an actor I like, so that's kind of exciting. But I guess I get this is an obvious one, but I guess I should mention the pearl necklace because that's been in everything since Dark Knight, and they actually make it a plot point in this, so that was kind of interesting that like the pearl necklace is actually a plot point and not just it falls.
Yeah. I think it's actually a little bit hilarious because in Return of Bruce Wayne, one of the symbols that Grant Morrison throws into this time loop to say this is always Batman are pearl necklaces.
Really? That's
yeah,
hilarious.
like he says, if anything's ever to be Batman, there will probably be a pearl necklace involved.
Now we go on to our weekly trivia questions, and Steve is going to give us one that is just a Batman at large, and okay, so this time you're only going to get one, because Steve gave away the answer to mine in his favorite quote. So I'll tell you what mine was, and then tell you why Steve freaking ruined it. So, Steve, go ahead and give us your trivia question, and I'll try to ruin yours next time somehow. No, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right, so mine is, we meet a detective that works with Montoya, who is a comic book character, Detective Allen. My question is, who kills Detective Allen in the Gotham Central comic book, which everyone wanted the show to be?
Good stuff. Okay, so my question was gonna be, where was the man when he died in the stand-up comics joke? That was gonna be the question, but then you told the joke, and it's in the joke. He was in an airplane, so
Good one, Steve.
Yeah, good job, Steve. But if you know,
payback for when 24 you ruined one of my trivia questions about that security officer.
I know. Sorry about that. I'm kidding. If you'd like to answer, this time just the one, Steve's trivia question, feel free to send me either a personal message on Geekvolution, or go to geekvolution.com, click the contact button, and then you can fill out the form there, and whoever I hear from first will get mentioned in next week's episode. I want to thank you guys so much for being here.
Can I have a trivia question real quick?
Absolutely, Dan.
Harvey Dent. Can we trust him?
Do you guys think Dent's going to be in the show?
I've heard he is.
Oh, okay, cool.
I hope so.
Yeah, they said that they were going to do the origin stories of several characters, and Harvey Dent and Mr. Freeze are among those.
But we don't know when or if it'll be this season.
Yeah, but I think they've even cast him. We just haven't seen it. I can look it up really quick. But I think they pretty much confirmed Harvey Dent will be in the show at some point.
Awesome. That is very exciting. Well, guys, thanks a bunch for being here with me. This was a little longer than I'm hoping the show will usually go, but first episode, we had a lot of things to discuss, and I had a great time. I hope you guys did too. Feel free to leave your comments. I will take 2 or 3 of the most insightful comments that I see, and we will talk about them next time. Anything anybody wants to dispute us on, or point out that we missed, or anything you want to correct us on, feel free to leave comments and say whatever you want to. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan. This was Steve Baxi.
Yep. Goodbye, everybody.
And DanzNewz.
How about that?
And we'll see you next week.
What the dance was.